You know how to increase the value of your business in 5 years by 20x. You simply buy one business every year, very methodically, that's half your current run rate. You can always do an extra 10%. And that extra 10 is the difference between good and great, is the difference between great and really, really special. And it doesn't matter whether we're talking about your business, whether you're talking about a project, whether you're talking about your relationship with your significant other. Put that extra 10% effort in to make it special and magic. It's that extra 10% that people remember. What are the odds of starting a business and lasting 1 year? What are the odds of starting a business, getting it over $1 million and lasting 3 years? What are the odds of starting a business, lasting over 10 years and having a revenue over $10 million? Now we're getting to the 0.001% success rate. So when you're an entrepreneur, you never see yourself on the statistics that are against you. You see that small chances you're the exception.
Welkom bij de StoryBrand podcast, waar wij geloven, if you confuse, you lose. Ruis in je communicatie is je grootste vijand. En het creëren van een duidelijke boodschap is de sleutel om je bedrijf te laten groeien. Dit is de StoryBrand podcast.
All right, well, to our dear listeners and viewers, welcome back to the StoryBrand podcast. Today we have a truly exceptional guest, Tom Shipley. Tom's journey is one of profound resilience and innovation, from facing challenges and bullying in his youth to pursuing a daring dream in the Israëlische Special Forces, and then transitioning to a powerhouse entrepreneur who has founded and scaled multiple businesses. In my opinion, Tom embodies what it means to overcome and achieve. His story is not just about success, it's about transforming adversity into opportunity. Tom, thank you for joining us today.
Dan, it's great to see you again, and great to connect. Excited to be here.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to talk about mergers and acquisitions. That's your specialty. It's wonderful to see DealCon, your conferences. But before we dive into mergers and acquisitions, I would like to first get to know you a little bit better, because if we introduce you well, people understand who we're talking to. Talking about resilience, I mean, you're living in Tel Aviv right now. It's been. We were talking just before we started recording about what's happening in the world right now. You've seen the bomb shelter inside many times in the last few days. So tell us a little bit about your world right now.
Yeah, it's been insane. We've been here since last August, and therefore there have been frequent trips to either a bomb shelter or our safe room. And majority of the time, it's either been because of the Houthis are firing ballistic missiles at Israel, or it is Iran firing ballistic missiles at Israel. And understand this is a ballistic missile is one that holds 1 ton of explosives that can basically blow up a whole city block. So again, when they're sending this over, it's out, and then their newest version of ballistic missile actually separates into cluster bombs, which again are not precision. It's meant for pure destruction and death into different neighborhoods.
Yeah,
so that's what's been coming our way for I'm going to say with the Houthis, and it's been 1 or 2 a night, at least 3 to 4 days a week, and then of course with Iran the last 12 days, it's been very intense throughout the day, evening, and just basically. Typically 5 times we're running into the bomb shelters or safe rooms.
Wow.
Because the ballistic missiles have been fired. Again, fortunate or unfortunate, we do get a 10-minute warning that goes off on our phones, and then you get near a shelter, and then you get basically a 2-minute warning, then a 1-minute warning, then the siren goes off if it's in your exact area.
Yeah.
And that tells you had 90 seconds to actually get into yourself for shelter and close the door. And it's just insane.
How do you deal with such a situations, the stress, maybe fear, anxiety? How does this work? Because I've never been in a life-threatening situation like that, but this is life-threatening, right? I mean,
yeah. So part of it is I'm shockingly rational when it comes to this, and of course, after being in the military, anyways. And from my perspective is that they over 20 something years ago, 20, 30 years ago, they started mandating buildings with safe rooms in them, and as well as bomb shelters. And the safe rooms are built in the core of the building, and they're stacked one on top of each other. And they're meant that the building can sustain a hit from a ballistic missile and handle the shrapnel on the impact. The only thing that safe rooms aren't meant for is a direct hit from a ballistic missile. And that means that it'd have to hit my neighborhood, my floor directly. And the odds of that happening are 1 in 2 million. I'm going to say that there have been 6 people that were killed that were in their safe rooms. 1 here 2 people were killed in Tel Aviv because they actually hit the door of it. 4 people that were on safe rooms on top of each other it was the last missile at the last moment that Iran fired at Beersheba, which is just purely civilian. There's no army there or military. And they just fired it into the neighborhood, and it just happened to hit 2 different floors and then killed all 5 people there.
Wow. So you, where were you born in the U.S.?
Yes, born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. At the age of 13, we moved to Orlando, Florida. And then I was basically raised the rest of my time in high school in Orlando, Florida.
Wauw. Veel zakelijke dienstverleners kampen met onduidelijke processen, versnipperde informatie en afhankelijkheid van collega's. En dat zorgt natuurlijk voor een hoop frustratie en onrust op de werkvloer. Clientbox stroomlijnt je dagelijkse operatie, brengt overzicht en zorgt ook voor rust in je hoofd en in je team. Ga naar clientbox.nl/podcast en ontdek hoe Clientbox jouw bedrijf efficiënter laat werken. And so your time in the IDF, so that must have been a very conscious decision to move to Israel and get into the army.
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
And for me, I was at Florida State. Life was great, but what I was really looking for I'm looking for a life of meaning and impact. And so I made this decision that I'm Jewish. I have this responsibility to help build the third Jewish Commonwealth after 2,000 years. There's suddenly this very young country with great aspirations and the ability to be part of it and be part of life and pay taxes and move to Israel and just have this impact in life would be great. And for me, one of the highest also callings that I had was actually to serve in the defense of the company and the country.
Yeah.
I went back to Orlando from Florida State, from Tallahassee, shared the news with my parents that I'm joining the IDF. My father said, Tom, you're not that athletic. You don't know the language. You don't know the country. And you don't know anything about the Army. Best case, you're going to be a bureaucrat pushing papers. And my dad is someone who I've always revered, his sharp tongue kept me in my place. And therefore, you always look for those defining moments in life. And defining moments, you don't know that in the instant, but looking back, you identify those defining moments. Yeah. Me turning my dad and said, I respect you, I love you, Dad, but this is my life and my path, and I'm doing this.
Wow.
And so, again, those are all things that we look back in life as saying, what are the defining moments? But that was one of them in that clear break that I went ahead. And what was interesting is that I have a couple things that are important that are core to me. First of all is I have this passion for purpose and impact, and it drives me to this day. I also have a drive for excellence and adventure. No matter what I do in business, in life, I want to live life from the inside. You know the poem, The Man at the Arena? Mm-hmm. That's me. I love being in the arena. I hate being a spectator. So actually coming to Israel, moving the army, and then a friend of mine told me that, Tom, when you go into a combat unit, which are tough to get into, if you can get in the special forces unit, it might be 30 or 40% harder. But once you're in, the quality and the caliber of the people around you will rise you to a level you never thought was possible. And in certain ways, for the longer haul, it makes it easier.
Yeah.
And for me, the odds are clear and forgetting about the fact I didn't know Hebrew going in and whatever my athletic ability was, there were 10,000 people that try to get into my unit. My unit 1 is one that rescues civilians and soldiers wherever they are throughout the world. It's one of the top 4 special forces unit in the Army. The closest we have in the United States to that is pararescue and the parajumper, the PJs, parajumpers.
Wow.
So in the unit, there are 10,000 people that try to get into my unit. They battery of tests, psychological, technical tests, physical test, day test, and then they pick 1,000 people to go through what is two different hell weeks. Each would have 500 people. At the end of that hell week, what they do is they pick 25 of us to start an 18-month long process of training. At the end of the 18 months, there were 14 of us remaining.
Wow, Tom.
And
it's Unit 669, right?
That's correct.
Wow.
And what's incredible about this is I look at the odds of, let's just pivot for a second to business.
Mm-hmm.
What are the odds of starting a business and lasting 1 year? What are the odds of starting a business, getting it over $1 million and lasting 3 years? What are the odds of starting a business, lasting over 10 years and having a revenue over $10 million? Now we're getting to the 0.001% success rate. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you, as you're an entrepreneur, is you never see yourself on the statistics that are against you.
Oh, wow.
You see that small chances you're the exception. And same thing here is I didn't know any better. I loved the book by James Clear, Atomic Habits.
Yeah, me
right?
too. Yeah.
And so after the fact, I look back and say, what did I do? And when I started going into the Army, I didn't see myself as, okay, Tommy Shipley, whatever, as I was, as the way they pronounce my name is Thomas.
Yeah.
The way they pronounce it is Thomas Shipley. That was the identity I assumed, and I was fearless. All my past, I'm going to say traumas and everything else and the negative voices in my head disappeared for that period of time. And I became the person that I felt I was meant to be. Wow. And rising a different level. And throughout my career, what I've done is I try to tap into that person that did the exceptional, the impossible, and actually try to create no limits for myself in whatever thing I want to do for impact or whatever I want to do to grow businesses. And as I keep on adding zeros onto the business.
How does that work, Tom? So if you, because you mentioned something very, very interesting to me, very powerful. There's a big lesson here. You you move from the US to Israel, you get chosen by this group. What is the moment where you decide this is the person I'm going to be, and why did everything disappear from the past? How can we do that in our lives?
It was subconscious, but I created the vision of the person I needed to be successful in the unit. I put myself in that situation that said, that's who I am. And I said, the only thing that's different between me, in that case, it would be 18 months from now to now is time. So let me bring that person of the future back to now. And that's who I am. And I had that clarity of purpose, the clarity of who I am, and nothing was going to stop me. A friend of mine said, and this goes with business also, a friend of mine said, Tom, when you go and you try out, understand this, is that you're going to be just all out, sweating, dying, and you're going to get to the point that you can't take another step. You're going to look to your right, you're going to look to your left, and you're going to see people that are a lot bigger, a lot stronger than you, and that they are going, and it looks like they can go forever. Understand this is, first of all, you can always take another step. And then another step and another step, and eventually you get to the finish line. He said, and understand this is the person on your right is looking at you and saying, oh my God, is that guy ever going to quit? Is ever going to stop? The guy on your left is looking at you saying, looking at you saying, is that guy, he's smaller, but man, he just doesn't quit. And that's exactly it. It's the stories we tell ourselves. And and in business, it's the same thing is we will, whether you hit a wall or have a concrete wall fall on your head in business, when everyone counts you out and everyone says you might as well quit, you have no chance on that. That's where you have to dig down and say, I don't care what they say, is I have the grit, the tenacity, and the momentum is to keep on going, and I will find a way.
Love it. This is so powerful. You mentioned the word excellence. What is the difference between excellence and perfectionism, and is it a difference, and is it very important to understand?
That's a very important thing is I'll never be perfect. I don't want to be perfect. If I spent my time being perfect, in what I do, then I would never be able to accomplish anything, because you'll never achieve perfection. And the amount of time you spend on that extra percent that doesn't have an impact,
Yeah.
you're going to waste time. When it comes to excellence, it is understanding what really matters, putting your energy and effort into the highest impact, highest leverage activity, and then going all in.
Love it.
I say going all in is, there's a thing that I learned, and maybe that's what helped me get there, is when I assumed the identity, I went all in. I remember that, you look at those turning points in your life, and I remember I had some horrible PTSD when I played when I was small, when I played mini football, when I was in beginning of end of elementary school, beginning of junior high. And I remember the kids were just so mammoth that I just got tossed around everywhere. And me having these reflexes, I get hit. It wasn't the prettiest thing. And then therefore I did anything that would require endurance, running, crew, things like that. I loved anything that was basically strong physical. It wasn't my thing. And then during our 7-day, actually it turned to be 5.5 days, or 5.5 a day Hell Week, that we went in for. One of the things they did towards the end is they had basically, it was all rules, no rules, football, get the football or rugby ball, whatever they gave us, to the other side, regardless of who gets hurt and what you do. And one of the things that I just identified right there is I was all in. I went, I can't be hurt. Nothing can touch me. I'm superhuman in my strength and what I can accomplish. And the guy that showed up there I'm still in awe of that guy. So again, sometimes we just, what is excellence? It's going all in. It's going all heart. It's being passionate about something and really understanding is excellence. And the other thing I'll share with you, Dan, that I just like to do in my everyday life is the 10% rule.
What is the 10% rule?
You can always do an extra 10%.
Oh, wow.
And that extra 10 is the difference between good and great, is the difference between great and really, really special.
Wow.
And I don't care whether it's versus the going to 100%, you'll never achieve 100%. You're wasting so much resources by doing that, but you can always do 10%. And it doesn't matter whether we're talking about your business, whether you're talking about a project, whether you're talking about your relationship with your significant other or your wife, whether you're talking about your kids. If you do something with your, let me put it this way, if I'm making dinner for the kids and for the family, I'm going to put that extra 10% effort in to make it special and magic.
Wow.
That's what people remember.
Wow.
Relationships, taking care of people, your employees. It's that extra 10% that people remember.
I love this. I was about to ask the first question about business, but since you mentioned your children and relationships, one of the things that makes me jealous is not the right word, but I was in Israel in September 2023. I was supposed to fly in October. We changed it to September. My mother, my father passed away in 2018, and my mom was a little depressed in the May of 2023. And I got a message from my brothers, and they said, Mama's not really doing well. She's not really happy. So I went to my mother and I asked her, I said, you're still healthy. You're 76, but you're healthy. What do you want to do? She said, I want to go to Israel. I used to go to Israel a lot with your father. I would love to do that. I said, well, let's go. She said, no, you're busy, man. You got 2 businesses. You got 5 children. Don't do it. I said, well, I decide, so, and she had never flown business class. So we took an El Al flight to Israel. We stayed a week, spent time with people I hadn't seen in 30 years, because the last time I went, I was 18. And the beauty was that, we celebrated Shabbat, and it really hit me like Shabbat is this one moment in the week where you go into your inner circle. And so I started asking my Jewish friends, I said, can I, as a non-Jew, celebrate Shabbat? They said, of course you can. I mean, the Bible even tells about having Shabbat, even if you are not a Jew. And I said, how do I do that? Well, make your own version, take things that you like. And So we started designing Shabbat starting in September 2023. We do it every week on Friday. The first time we did it, one of my daughters went to school and said, I can't play tonight because we have tapas. She didn't know the word Shabbat yet. But we spend time, and the girls really look forward to it. So in your Jewish world, I know that you guys share Shabbat. You always send this message on Instagram, like, Shabbat Shalom. And I see your house is filled with laughter and people and singing. And can you tell us a little bit about why this is so important to you? I mean, and how powerful this actually is, if because I want to inspire people with this podcast to take care of themselves and their families and their loved ones, right?
One of the gifts I got from my parents is after their first trip to Israel, they came back, and must have been 7 or 8 at the time, and they decided to light candles and have us and have a Shabbat, and we giggled as kids. We didn't know what was going on. But from then on, every Friday night, we were always together as a family. And even in high school, we can go out after dinner, after we're totally done. But Friday night was that sacred time as a family. And I'm going to say, which was all about conversations and catch up. And basically it was about bonding. And a lot of times we had outside people in that enriched the tables and relationships. But I'm going to say it was the Friday night that crystallized our family relationships. And the same thing happened with our kids. Friday night has always been sacred. The weeks, we're all busy, things are crazy, but Friday night we're always together, and Shabbat, and our girls were always with us. If they want to bring friends, great, invite as many as you want to, but Friday night is always really special, and it's just our time to get together. And I'm going to say, we all, we're always so busy, and there's our kids' practices and sports, and we have business obligations, but having one time a week where that is sacred, no matter what. You can do more than that, but that's what Shabbat. And the other thing is, for us in Judaism, we're not Orthodox, but just getting together, lighting the candles, doing the basic prayers and being together anchors us in that meaning. As I said, life is, you have to decide what you want to anchor with your kids.
Yeah.
And understanding that if you believe and again, these are dialogues that went back and forth, whether there is a God, there isn't, whether there's a higher spirit. My girls went through their transitions in life, which great. I want them to question everything. That's their job when they're growing up. But having something where there's a consistent understanding is there is meaning and there's passion, and it's what drives us is really important by living that.
Wow. I love this. Well, we got to know each other. I don't know if you remember, what was December 2019 in Nashville?
Nashville, sure. And then we went to King Prime. How could I miss it? My favorite restaurant.
Because you lived there for quite a while, right?
No, never.
Never.
I never lived. No, I lived in New Jersey at that time, and then at the beginning of COVID, we moved to Austin, Texas. So we thought about moving to Nashville, but in the end, we went to Austin.
Yeah, because I was there for StoryBrand to get certified that week. And then Ken Moskovich, a friend of yours and mine, heard about it. So he came with his wife. And then he said, let's have dinner. And you and your wife came. And we had this wonderful time together. And this dinner, I remember that you guys gave me the wine card and said, choose some wine. I could hardly read it. It was pretty dark there in that spot where we were sitting. So we took this Bordeaux. It was exceptional wine, but then we found out about the price. That's all I remember. Yeah. But you have transitioned, and right now you're in mergers and acquisitions. Right? I mean, that's what you do right now. And something profound that I heard you say is that you believe that almost every business challenge and exit goals can be achieved through acquisitions. So, let's dive into mergers and acquisitions. It's not everybody's expertise. You are an expert in it. You've surrounded yourself with the best of the world, and you're having these conferences all over the world for DealCon. So what's the power of this? Why are you so excited?
Well, I'll start with this. Is almost every business challenge, every single one, and I'm going to give some specific examples, can be solved through acquisitions. And we're going to go back to just how I got into this to begin with, okay? Because most of my life I've been building brands, and that's it. So this has been a transition, but it was acquisitions that have saved my businesses over and over again. So and something I learned in the Army, we're trained as medics, and we're taught is no matter how much tools and medicine and everything else and supplies you have in the field, for what you need in a mass casualty event, you're never going to have the resources you need. So a good medic is one who improvises. But let's take that overall. A good entrepreneur is one improvises. You will never have the resources you need, so you always have to be as one who is very resourceful. It's never about the amount of resources you had. It's always about resourcefulness.
Love it.
Now, what do I mean? Let's go case in point. My first acquisition. I started my first real business in 1999. AdWords was new. Email was very exciting that you could start using it for commerce. No one knew how. We started experimenting with that. I started an online store for a specific niche focusing on business professional. It was a D2C online business, but I believed in omni-channel marketing. I mailed out millions of catalogs every month. For those people, listeners that understand what the in-flight magazine Sky Mall was, we got up to a dozen pages in that. And then the dot-com bust happened, recession, conversion rates went down. We were losing money. And worse than that is that you couldn't raise any money because basically the balloon popped from the euphoria of everyone giving out free money about the internet.
Right.
At that point, anything related to the internet, even though we were a multi-channel business, was basically no one to put money into. We got to the point that we were down to 30 days in cash in the bank, not knowing how we're going to pull out of this. Then a investment banker out of New York called me up, Lee Hellman, and he said, Tom, I'm representing Boise Cascade. We're selling off a division. And then they have a small division, a $15 million division. They don't want, they need to find a home for it. I think your business is a perfect complement to this business. And I want you to buy it. I'm thinking, I can't make payroll. How am I going to buy a business? We worked out a deal because, again, everything is about the motivation of the seller. And I'll talk about that over and over again. It was a highly motivated seller. They cared about their $750,000 division. They didn't care about this. They just wanted a good home for their employees and just continuing this business so they could find a home. There was a deal structure to be made, and we made a return on that investment in 30 days.
Wow.
And it allowed me to leave. I exited that business 12 months later. And then fast forward, I then decided, after doing some consulting, with a new partner of mine in Richmond, Virginia, let's take my playbook on how to build iconic brands using direct response marketing and do it in an industry that in 2005, I don't know if you remember, is everyone said that we fail because you can never, ever, ever build a beauty business with direct response marketing. Not everyone will say that, well, that's so obvious. Well, back then it wasn't. And people laugh that he was a former officer as Army Ranger. So two former Special Forces guy in Richmond, Virginia, think they're going to start a beauty business. Everyone laughed. And we had this goal that we're going to get to $100 million. Well, a year later, we went all in, personally, financially, to my wife, to Pam's chagrin. The business had nothing. Our houses were mortgaged. We took out loans on our cars, everything. Our credit cards were tapped. And we were done, and we had $331,000 of sales to show for it, a great product line. We showed that the lifetime value and the customer acquisition costs in print were great, in radio were great, but we had 4 months to break even on cash. And then on our internet business, we were starting to work out, but we were done. And so what do you do when you run out of money? Go back to playbook number one, you buy a business. We bought a $15 million supplement business that had 9 products. They were purely online. They're throwing off $1.5 million in cash. It was run by a young couple in their mid-20s. They had an incredible team, tech, new online marketing really well, designer, everything, and did fulfillment in-house. And again, they were fulfilling out of 2 warehouses connected in Hoboken, New Jersey, but it was perfect. And so we bought it. Now, what problems were we trying to solve? We needed cash flow because we were done. We needed an online marketing team. We needed a dev team. We really didn't have they didn't have Shopify then. We needed a microsite. They give us everything when we actually came together with them. Now we put my little $331,000 brand on top of this platform, this $15 million business. Within 3 years, the business did $100 million. On that first skincare brand that we found a lab to develop for, we tested it with our neighbors. We did $1 billion of revenue on it.
Unbelievable.
And that was our first brand. Now, again, remember, we didn't have any money. We didn't have resources, but we had resourcefulness. And we were able to find a company to acquire that solved all of our business challenges. And with that, we were able to scale to a level. I don't know what would have happened if we didn't find that acquisition and execute on it.
So two of the main questions people will ask you too, and these pop up to my mind right now. One, how can you buy a business if you don't have cash? And why would somebody sell a business if the business is doing good?
Okay. I'll start with this. So I bought a lot of businesses over the years. And so with this case, it was a great business. We paid 85% cash and 15% rollover equity. 2 years later, we bought out the rollover equity for the same amount that we bought the 85%. That's how well we grew it, and we did it in order to buy them out. Now, as far as so to start with, where do we get the money? If you are buying a growing business that's healthy, and you are good business people, there are lenders out there that will lend to you, and they're lending it on that. They didn't land it on our business that did $331,000 in revenue that slightly lost money. They lent it on a business that was throwing off $1.5 million. And a good rule of thumb is it's not that difficult to get debt on a business at 2 times its EBITDA or its profit.
Right.
So in this case, it was doing $1.5 million. We can borrow 3. We borrowed 2.85. It was really, again, it was within. We met we talked with 5 different lenders, specialty lenders. We got 2 term sheet. We picked the one that we liked best, and that's how we did it. So again, and it was outside funding that came in because there's so much money out there. They're looking to invest in strong businesses. You either invest as equity, where they take, and for us to buy equity, they would own almost all the business there. Debt wise, we're taking a bet on ourselves that the business will sustain its cash flow and be able to pay down the debt over time.
Right. That's powerful. So this you buy actually with money from investors. You said something very important. You have to be good.
Let me be very clear, Dan. Lenders. This wasn't investor. You can buy from investors, but this is lenders.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily a bank, but there's a lot of specialty lenders out there that will let you borrow debt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got it. And the other thing you mentioned is that, you mentioned, okay, so let's go to the next question then. The next question would be, why would they sell, right? What are some of the reasons that you find? And it's also, I think there's a big opportunity right now with people, the baby boomers who are getting out, maybe not with follow-up, but how do you look at that? Why would people sell?
Okay,
what do you see?
Let's start with this. Let's rate that. Let's just start with baby boomers and the silver tsunami that's happening right now. I heard a stat yesterday that there are 9,000 business owners retiring a day. 80 to 90% of businesses that will want to sell will never sell and close. Even those that have term sheet won't close. So there are so many businesses out there, and if people can't sell it, then what do they do with the business? They either turn over their employees or they close it down. Sometimes they don't feel comfortable turning over the employees because there's reputation risk. If you have a business and you have the opportunity to sell it to a good operator, that even if, and let's say they only give you 10% of the enterprise value at close, but then every month they send you a payment every month for the next 3 or 5 years, that's fantastic. It's better than where you're at right now. And especially you might kick in a little kicker so that based on performance, they get a little extra kicker on top of that.
Yeah.
And so everything, what we talk about in M&A when we teach it is that it's about price and terms. And, joking around, we say, your price, my terms. Dan, I got a question. Can I buy your business tomorrow for $500 million?
Yes.
Okay. What about if I pay you $10 a week?
No.
Okay. So see, price and terms. So sometimes I might be willing to pay more for a business, but I'll tell you what, but let's say I'll pay you, I pay you 6 times multiple in your business, which is high, but I'll pay that based off of over a 5-year period of time where lower payments the first 2 years and the rest accelerates from there. Therefore, you get top dollar for your business you wouldn't get anywhere else. And we'll build guarantees into that pricing so you feel secure.
Yeah.
Price, it's the laws of price and terms. So let me just quick fast forward and just give you some context on this. There are sellers that have a lot of motivations that are out there. And the first dialogue I do with every potential seller is I learn about them. I don't talk, I find a little bit about the business, but I learn about them, their goals and motivation. If I can get them to be honest with me with their goals and motivation, then there's a chance that I can understand there's a Venn diagram. Here's their needs. Here's my needs. And if I can find that intersect where there's a sweet spot, and if I understand their true needs, I can a lot of times get there if they are rational with the value of their business and I really want their business. So let me just quick fast forward a couple different things just from a data point perspective. We sold our analytical brands off to private equity in 2021 at the very beginning of COVID. And again, over that business, we did about $2 billion of revenue. And there's a lot of great stories and great lessons of just highs and adversity, almost losing the business, turning around. So it's never a straight line up, but everything, what you do is it makes you stronger. And there's incredible value to going through the adversities. It's all the gifts of adversities. But in 2021, we sold that private equity. In 2020, at the very beginning of COVID, I didn't want to sit and watch TV and drink a lot and spend my time at home, but I was saving 3 hours a day from a commute. So what started as a call to a friend in Austin, Texas, you want to buy a Amazon e-com brand and have some fun. Why don't we buy 2? And next day it was, why don't we buy 10? And the following weekend is, hey, Brian, I built the blueprint on how we can actually buy and manage 100 brands. By changing my operating principles, you want to build a platform, an aggregator to roll up Amazon e-com brands. The answer was yes. We raised $100 million, recruited the right team. I stayed on a year doing the first series of acquisitions. We developed our M&A playbook. And at the end of a year, we hired a CEO and I was able to exit for my next opportunity.
I love this.
And then different asset class now that I'm focusing on. I've been focusing on agencies. And right now I'm starting to branch off into even other industries because the M&A playbook is the M&A playbook. I have 2 degrees in industrial engineering. When it really breaks down to it is the SOPs, and you combine some IQ with really EQ and people skills.
Love it.
That's how you buy business. And that's what I became passionate about 3 years ago with getting to teach people, because I really want to spend most of my time buying and building companies and selling them. However, I love helping people. We talk about impact and meaning. I believe that every entrepreneur, my wish for them is that they have 3 exits in their lifetime. What I do know is that every entrepreneur should be leaning on 3 things, 3 points of leverage. Organic growth, and there's a lot of tricks from stacking to how they actually increase their profit organically to partnerships. But 1 is organically, 2 is technology, and right now it's AI. It's scaling through AI and becoming more efficient, increasing your profitability. And number 3 is acquisition. Those 2 are the highest leverage opportunities, partnerships, acquisitions, and technologies that CEOs should be freeing themselves time to focus on. Is the highest and best leverage use of their time that will transform your company.
I love this. I absolutely love this.
Can I share my 20x rule with you?
Yeah. Please go ahead,
Okay.
Tom.
Do you know how to increase the value of your business in 5 years by 20x? You simply buy one business every year, very methodically. That's half your current run rate. That's it. 20x your exit or your strategic opportunities at your value. You want to just have it at 10x over 5 years? Buy one business every year. That's a 30-year size. And take your scale that you have and the extra cash flow, and then invest in a technology such as AI that is important for the continuity of any business going on, but it gives you the scale to do that. And the acquisitions you should be thinking about are one that are complementary for your business. What are the greatest gaps you have, and how can you solve us out through an acquisition? And that's why I'm passionate about. I love teaching it. I love sharing it. I get to right now coach 25 different companies on how to basically, my goal is at a minimum, they're going to buy one business over the next 12 months. And that's my goal, is for myself and my partner, Matt, to help them do that. So I'm getting a lot of fun by that. So I'm time slicing away from my core business, but it's where I get my energy from.
Wow. Is that a program people can sign up for, or you choose and pick?
It's really interesting. It's a combination of both. Most of the people have come to our DealCon CEO M&A Summit. Our next one's in Austin from the 8th to the 10th of September. And most people come through that and decide to join our advisory board community, but we also interview them, because it's very, very, it's really high caliber, amazing people in it. And we want to make sure that we preserve the community we're in. And then we are bringing on some people outside. We have let people come in outside of DealCon. DealCon is just a great foundation of 2.5 days. But what we do is we spend 16 weeks, one call a week for an hour, plus we give them a lot of support resources so they understand the fundamentals of how to do programmatic M&A and build that practice within their business. We also build the lead gen, so we teach them what to say. So they're actually taking calls with sellers once a day, 2 or 3 times a week, that they're just taking calls, and we set that up for them. Our goal is to reduce the friction and the noise, and then basically how to actually reduce the risk and increase the upside and the probability of a close. And that's really our goal, that really is successful in their business. So that's, so those are the 2 programs, with advisory board and DealCon CEO M&A Summit. Right now we're running it twice a year until we can only do once a year. So
wow,
that's it.
Very powerful. So what are some of the lessons steps that you can share, where you say, hey, this is what you need to take care of in order to be ready to buy a company? What are some of the things you found with successful buying?
The first one, internally, is a healthy culture. Because ultimately, when you do an acquisition, there's always, you can get over any type of obstacle you have that you're not prepared for. Your KPIs, your business isn't growing as fast as it should. Whatever it is, acquisition can solve them as any business challenge, except for if you have a culture of people in conflict all the time, that you can't do anything, then unless you're looking to do an acquisition to get rid of most of your team, it's really, really tough to do. So if I say that's the main thing that you need to put in order, is basically, but every business should understand that culture beats any strategy any day of the week.
Yeah.
Because IP advantage, technological advantage, any advantage you have, client advantage will disappear if you don't have that culture in place. Right. And so let me just share a couple, given examples on that, about getting, things in order.
Yeah.
My friend Brian Burt, he's probably one of the best you can find in marketing, sales, and development. He's brilliant at a different level. He was making money from an Amazon agency at a number of businesses, and he decided to kill all the other businesses and focus on this Amazon agency. He charged a lot of money for services, and they were fine. They weren't excellent, but he needed to figure out a way to scale and actually drastically increase the level of service. He bought a business that had the reputation from among the best delivery in the industry. They had 1,600 pages of SOPs. They were precision, but because they weren't marketing and salespeople, they could barely make, and sometimes they didn't, they can barely make payroll, and they were dying. So Brian said, I'll bring you in, I'll give you all raises, and basically implement you, and basically turned to the CEO and said, you'll be now the CEO of the company. You run it and implement all the processes. You said you are great at what you do, and I will increase your sales, and I'll give you 0.5% of the company. So we did an acqui-hire. And with that, they actually were given an offer to buy their business 2 years ago for $200 million.
Very powerful.
So that's the problem that he solved. Let me share another is a friend, of my first employee at T. Shipley, my first business. He came to one of our events, and he's phenomenal. He's strong. He always was a go-getter. He actually joined me as an intern, and here we are connecting 20 years later. And he had 50% of a very small PR agency that he was struggling with $350,000 in sales. He went and he leaned all in. He followed our processes. He actually booked 50 seller calls, found 3 agencies he really liked, brought them all to DealCon. The one he really wanted to buy was a $3 million agency, production agency, unbelievably branding and strategy and production, $3 million in revenue out of California, doing very nicely profitable. He ended up buying them. I think he actually did it with $50,000 out of pocket, cash himself, the rest of it's seller notes and upside. He was able to buy the majority of it. And his goal was to leverage this as a platform. And right now is, while the business took an initial dip, it's having its biggest year ever and creating opportunities. So, and therefore, and because the PR agency was non-strategic, he closed it down because this is the core. It's an incredible team, incredible culture, and the quality of the work and the logos they have are phenomenal.
Amazing.
But again, here's an example. What did he have everything in order? No. If you're willing to do the work and you're willing to follow through, you can buy a company. It's just a question of following the SOPs and being what you've done to be successful, being really just tenacious and just follow the process.
Yeah, I love that. I love the things that you share. It's a culture, it's the processes, it's the people, right? If you're willing to put in the work, it's with anything in life, right? If you want it, you can get it. You can do it.
Yeah.
It's the mindset. So it's interesting. So, I know your time is valuable, and we only have another 5 minutes. I have 2 more questions that I would like to ask. I will mention them quickly.
Okay.
And before you answer them, I would love to ask if all the billboards in the world would be yours for a day, what would you say? And the other one, what book did you read that impacted your life, or maybe you read often? But before you can answer those, I also want to give you the opportunity. What question didn't I ask that you want to mention? One thing that you want to share before we have to wrap up because of time. Big questions, I know.
Well, what question would I want to ask other people is, I guess, the question, which is, have you been able to shut off the pressure and the noise and really identify what really drives you and what's really important? And I always go through this exercises with people is saying that, okay, that's what you say. So if you have that, how would it make you feel? Would you want something else? Well, what would be the challenge of that? What would be the upside? How would you feel about it? Would that satisfy what you need? And what I'm trying to go through is Maslow's hierarchy of needs and trying to get to what is the core things that really drive people, because a lot of what drives us is really not what makes us happy. And ultimately, if you think about it, when you're in your 80s or 90s and looking back, what are you going to be the most proud of?
Yeah.
And are you actually, and it's not many things. And if you look at your time and resources and where you're spending them, is that where you spent most of your life?
Wow. That's great, Tom. Thank you for sharing that. So would that be also the question you would put on the billboards? Like what's the thing you really want?
My billboards would be is at the age of 5, looking back at the age of 85, looking back at your life, what is it that means the most to you?
Love it. Very powerful, especially today, right? With everything happening. What book is really profound? Has been profound in your life or profound in your business?
I have trouble answering that question because there's so many great reads out there, and I get a little bit of everything. But I'm going to go back to Atomic Habits is a great one, as well as Extreme Ownership.
Yeah.
So those are just 2 great books that's core that I try to share with people, because both those, one is for goals of where you're going and really understanding what is necessary for relentless discipline to achieve what you want to. And the other is ultimately one of the challenges in society right now is there's not a lot of accountability and ownership.
No.
And those people that are, to me, ultimately again, you can be successful without by doing blame and not taking ownership of things. But
Yeah.
if you want to live a life of integrity and live a life of true accomplishments, extreme ownership is not a weakness, it's a strength.
Yeah. Love it. And accountability is really key, right? You have to have other people around you that you're accountable to as well. Yeah.
That's it. On the flip side, I always loved well, I know that we're out of time. Let's end it there. We can keep on going as far as I was going to bring up radical candor as just something that most people don't understand how to do, or as I call, as sincere candor. Most people don't get it, but those are all, good reads, good books, and solid. Dan, I'm sorry that we're out of time and that I have to go. I wish we had more time just because I want to interview and find out what's happening in your life.
Yeah.
I'm going to invite you personally to, if you can, join us as DealCon as my VIP guest. It's the people in the room are just at another level.
Yeah.
And especially with about 70% agency owners, we have brand owners, we have SaaS, we have people rolling up law firms, we have people rolling up doctors' offices. So we really go across different asset classes. But about 70% of the room are agency owners. So
that's
if
very.
you can join us, love to have you there.
Yeah, September. We'll circle back by email. Thank you for your invitation. I'll see if I can make it. I have to go to the United States anyway, so let's make it a fun one.
It would be great. It would be great. Dan,
thank you for being it. Say hello to Pam and have a wonderful rest of your week.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Bye-bye, Tom.
Bye-bye.